Welcome in to another edition of the FutureSox RoundUp. My name is Elijah Evans, and we are back. I'm joined by my co-host, as always, Jeff Cohen. Super excited to be back. It's been a crazy few weeks here for me. I'm finishing up school, dealing with a lot of other stuff for the future. And Jeff has been, busy at games, doing a lot of other things, been keeping up with these teams. So we're back. It's been a little bit since we've been live, but we're excited to be here today, take some questions, talk about some prospects. It's perfect time, too, because we're at the beginning of a new month, which means we'll be able to get us rolling here as we get going. We're going to look at some of the top guys from May, and then I've talked about it a little bit with Jeff, but this is a fun time of year where I feel like we kind of can finally assess players with 2 months of a sample. We do assess them throughout the first few months, but it's hard to really give a full gauge of a player when you get a month of them or a couple weeks of them. 2 months in feels like a time where we can really start to look at guys that have taken a big step forward and some guys that haven't taken a step forward yet in those 2 months. So Jeff, how you doing, man? It's good to be back.
Man, Elijah, it's good to see you. I've missed you.
Yeah.
I felt lost without you. I've got so many questions for you, especially about some pitchers, because you are our pitcher whisperer. So let's get rolling. I've got a ton of questions about pitching prospects.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. I mean, it's, before we get into the minors, I think one thing that I've been noticing the past few weeks, it's a rough time in Chicago. We know this. We knew the season was going to be this way. In my opinion, there's some serious positive signs, especially on the pitching front, like you mentioned. I think that I think we look at the team and you see the record and you see the win losses and it's discouraging, but at the same time, I think there's a lot to like. And I think that the pitching side of things, you look at this rotation right now, and Jonathan Cannon's had a really rough last two starts. Looks like he's just kind of getting teed off on a little bit here today and then was last week as well. But generally speaking, you've gotten a good amount of quality starts from Cannon. You've gotten a very, very impressive season from Shane Smith so far. Sean Burke, I don't know if you've noticed this, Jeff, 5 of his last 6 starts, 1 or less run allowed. I'm keeping an eye on that because, April was rough for sure. And the numbers still aren't where you want them to be. The strikeout numbers are still low. He's still walking a lot of guys, but you're seeing signs of the Sean Burke that I thought could really break out this season. A 2.73 ERA in May compared to over 5 in April, right? That's a big swing there. So we're talking about a guy who's taking a step forward. Davis Martin has not been amazing, but has been, consistent quality starts, which is great to see from him. That's a guy who could get flipped to the deadline potentially. We've talked about that a little bit. We've heard some rumblings there. So there's some positive takeaways, and as much as we're focused on the farm here, I do think it's worth mentioning that the White Sox have been competitive at least for much of the past month.
All right, first question, Elijah. Does Lenine Sosa have a future in Chicago?
As someone who hasn't necessarily been a big Lenyn Sosa supporter over the past year, last year I was kind of like, okay, we'll see what it is. This year I was like, okay, I don't really want to see him over some other guys. He's been decent. I got to give credit where it's due. Sosa has put together some pretty good at bats, honestly, of late. And, in May, this is a guy who had a 740 OPS, give or take, in May, which, is not a star player, but compared to what he was doing in April, it's a step up. He took another step forward, and I'm curious to see what he does. I think right now in the present, I'm okay with him getting some continual reps because it has been a little better of late. This is a guy who, I think I forgot when I looked at the thing that he's only 25. I feel like Sosa in my head is already 27 because he's been on and off Chicago, the roster in Chicago for 3 years now. But he is only 25. So this is a guy who still is pretty young and still early point. So I don't know if he has a future in Chicago, but I'm okay with him continuing to get at bats at this point. It would be my output.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
Speaking of a future in Chicago, though, have you caught up at all with Miguel Vargas's numbers this season and the past month particularly?
Very.
Miguel Vargas is a guy I wouldn't say. I think I was a little bit more optimistic about him than most were. I think a lot of White Sox fans coming into the season were like, okay, waste of a trade, failed trade. I mean, everybody looked at that trade immediately and said it's a terrible trade. I'm looking at that trade right now and seeing Michael Kopech on the IL for the past 2 months, like he was for much of his White Sox career. And Miguel Vargas is probably the best hitter on the White Sox, and Gerald Perez is one of the best hitters in the Winston-Salem Dash. I'm just saying, we haven't even seen Alexander Albertus yet. That was a trade everybody wanted to call terrible out of the gate, and Miguel Vargas looks like a true core piece for the White Sox right now, honestly.
And from what I am being told, not only is the bat looking good, he looks good with the
Coming along at third, yeah. He's coming along there for sure. I've definitely heard good things about him in general. I don't know when Albertus is going to play. We got a question in the comment about Alexander Albertus. I really haven't heard anything on him this season. I mean, the surgery he went through at the end of last year was pretty intensive. So I know that was going to be a long recovery. I think the hope is that he gets back into games at some point this summer, at least in the ACL, to see where it goes from there. But yeah, I mean, Vargas is a great development for the White Sox, and him along with the way Maedroth is hitting has been really great to see. Kiro is taking a big step back. Edgar definitely is getting fed a bunch of breaking balls, which, once a guy settles into the big leagues, it's kind of how it goes, unfortunately. He's going to have to find a way to adjust, but in general, I'm not too worried about Caro there, especially, Vargas and Maedroth. Like, there are some positive developments overall. Even the bullpen, like, it's a bad bullpen for sure, and the White Sox have lost a lot of games because of the bullpen, unfortunately, which is tough. But it's also like I try to keep reminding myself and remind people that I talk to, like, a rebuilding team is not focused on a bullpen. At the end of the day, you can't put the emphasis there. And as much as it's hard to watch games go to waste, like a game where the White Sox are winning and get a good start and blow it late because of the bullpen, at the end of the day, it's still a positive situation, in my opinion, for this team moving forward to have games like that where you get a lot of good quality production from your offense and from your starter, even if the bullpen ends up losing that game, because the wins don't really matter right now.
Yeah, fair enough. And my assumption is we're going to see Peyton Paulette and
Yeah.
sooner than later. So
he just got to Charlotte. Have you gotten a chance to see him? I don't think they were out of town this week, so you
they
probably
were
haven't
out
been
of
able to see
town.
him
They're
yet.
home
Yeah.
this week. He is one of three people I'm hoping to talk to this week. I'd like to.
So let's get into Charlotte. Who else?
Well, I want to talk to someone in the chat asked about Kyle
Yep.
Till taking balls at first base. I'd like to talk to him about that, see how long that's been going, what the plan is. Then the third guy is I'd like to meet our newest Charlotte Knight, Drew Baker.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious to hear from Drew Baker as well. For those that are listening, that want to know about Drew Baker, he was acquired from Matt Thaiss. I think I said this to you like a month ago. Like, anything the White Sox get from Matt Thaiss would have been a massive victory, purely on the fact that he was a filler who was there to buy time for Caro, Teal, and Corey Lee. Right? You've got three young catchers in the system that are all kind of ready. I think at this point, Teal is pretty much ready. It's just a matter of kind of waiting till he has the innings to be. You're not going to bring him up until you can play him consistently. So you got to figure out what that looks like. But getting anything for Matt Thaiss is awesome. And Drew Baker, while probably more of an org depth guy, like, not a bad piece to get. I mean, again, like, getting anything for Thaiss is solid. But like, this is a guy who's in AAA. He's really struggled offensively this season. And even last year, he had some ups and downs offensively. But, a ton of speed. He had 49 stolen bases in 23, 42 stolen bases last year. In 2023 at the lower levels, between high A and double A, he had 14 home runs, and then last year he has no home runs. So I'm curious if there's something to tap into there. Like, I don't think it's a total like loss such player. I mean, again, like, that's a weird situation where I do think there might be something there in the tank offensively, but at the very least, you've got an outfield depth guy who has a ton of speed and is at least worth keeping an eye on, and is anything you get for Thaiss, like I said, is a victory. So I will take the fact that they were able to trade him for anything.
And you know what? Anytime you can trade for a player from certain organizations like the Dodgers or the Rays, you take them because they're going to be fundamentally sound. They're going to be hard nosed. There's a good chance they're going to pan out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think I don't think it was a bad get at all. So definitely excited to hear your take on him. Where are you at with Kyle Teal? I'm curious as we start with Charlotte here and focus on them. Like, Kyle Teal, I'm just going to read off some numbers here just because I'm looking at the past 30 days. So looking at just May in its entirety, right? Because they played, I guess, one game in June counts yesterday. But, looking at the past 30 days, Kyle Teal's last 20 games, slashing 338, 451, 632. That's a 1086 or 83 OPS, 5 homers, 5 doubles, 14 walks. That is a great sign for a guy like Teal. His profile, you're going to need to see him walk. 14 walks in those 20 games and only 20 strikeouts in 20 games. It's still a decently high strikeout clip, but it's completely survivable. The way that he's walking and the way that he's actually having a power output, right? Like, if you're getting 10 extra base hits on every 20 game basis and you're walking consistently, you can survive with 20 strikeouts in that span of games, in my opinion.
What was the on base percentage?
451.
I think he's getting plenty of hits and walks.
Yeah, we're okay with that. We can live with that.
So at what point, does he warrant a call up? I mean, how long does this have to continue?
It really comes down to the plan, positionally, right? Like I think I agree with Ian too. Like you got to continue to see that power, right? Like I think the big thing with Teal is how much impact there is, right? Like the
Right.
impact is going to be what matters there because I think he's going to continue to get his walks. I think he's going to continue to be a solid, a pretty decent overall, piece as a hitter, but the powerful impact is where I think that differentiation between a solid player and a really good player is going to be for Teal. So if he's able to keep the power up like he has in recent weeks and maintain that power, you're looking at a pretty good piece. I just think when it comes to the big league promotion, like where are you playing him every day? If you have Corey Lee in the roster and you have Edgar Carroll in the roster, is Kyle Teal just becoming your every other day first baseman? Like, I'm not opposed to that, but that puts a lot of pressure on the bat. Any of those three catchers being at first base means they absolutely have to rake. And that's a tough situation for a rookie. I think that if it's the way to get him at bats, it's the way to get him at bats. But I also am not opposed to the idea of just keeping him down for a little while. We mentioned this earlier, and it said, he's taking grounders at first base, which is great. I still think that does apply a lot of pressure on his bat. Ultimately, when you're a first baseman, like you've got to be hitting. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out with him. I'm curious to see where it goes. I wouldn't be surprised if he sticks around in Charlotte a little bit longer, honestly,
Oh, sure.
just because maybe you get something for Lee at the deadline. I'm not opposed to the idea of dangling Corey Lee at the deadline because I do think a catcher, a solid, Corey Lee is what 26, I think. So it's not like Corey Lee's an old guy. Corey Lee's got plenty of time in his life, in his career ahead of him. He's 25. Yeah, he's 26 at this point, right? This is a guy who's got one more year of pre-arb, 3 years arb. So he's got 4 more years on his contract after this season. There's a good amount of teams that would love to have 4 years of control of Corey Lee. The flip side of that, like somebody just said, I was getting there, is 2 rookie catchers for this season with such a young pitching staff is a little bit of a risky spot. I'm not opposed to it. From everything I've heard, Jeff, so I was talking to Aram Layton, my boss over at Just Baseball, who's working on his top 100. Kyle Teal this year has gone from a below average defensive catcher, in terms of his grading out, to a slightly above average defensive catcher this season. He has been average or better at pretty much all advanced catching metrics right now this season. So that's the flip side is like if both of them can be average or above average catchers defensively, you're in a pretty great spot in terms of your catching. You need to see that at the big league level still, obviously.
And I'm not sure what to make of the Kyle Till working out at first base. Yeah, if you get him to Chicago, it's a way to get more at bats, especially
sure.
without Vaughn or Elko there. But I mean, at some point, don't you think sooner than later we're going to see Vaughn or Elko back in Chicago?
Maybe, but like, I hate to be that guy, but like, why? I don't really. I mean, I don't really know why you bring back Andrew Vaughn. He's going to be a free agent in a year. You're not going to keep him. Realistically, you're not getting much in a trade. Like at this point, I feel like I think come a month or two from now, if he hits it well in AAA for a little bit, like you just ship him off somewhere for pennies and you call it a day, or you DFA him. I don't really see the purpose of having Andrew Vaughn back in Chicago. And maybe he just mashes in Charlotte and he finds a new rhythm and he makes a swing adjustment. And like, if that happens, great. Like that's fine. I'm going to be okay with him being back. But like, I just don't really see the reason to bring him back, punt him to the moon, as Ian says here. I don't need to see it anymore personally.
I guess in a perfect world, he gets things figured out. He hits well in AAA. You bring him back to Chicago. He hits well, and then you flip him.
Flip him to the deadline. Yeah, I mean, sure. I really don't know who's trading for Andrew
He
Vaughn at this
has
point.
no trade value right now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you get some pennies for him. You get a 17-year-old in the DSL, and he becomes Fernando Tatis. You never know, right? Somebody said earlier in the comments, Han. Do you see the clip, Jeff, of
Yeah,
Han admitting that? I don't care what Han says at this point. He can say whatever he wants. It really doesn't matter now to him. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think that's all right. Other guys in Charlotte to mention. I mean, Brooks Baldwin has been excellent since going down. I think Brooks, with another week maybe of some confidence gaining in Charlotte, should be back in Chicago. I didn't even think Brooks was that bad this year. Like, he wasn't great, don't get me wrong, and he needed some more reps in the outfield. He was struggling a bit defensively in the outfield because he hadn't played there really since 2023. So I'm fine with him being in Charlotte right now, but like sooner than later, Brooks has got a 10-21 OPS since going down to Charlotte. Like, I'd rather get him back in the lineup in Chicago compared to, some other guys that are playing there still.
Well, he looks like an all-star in Chicago. I know there's a world of difference
In Charlotte, yeah.
in Charlotte. I know there's a world of difference between Charlotte and Chicago, and nothing underscores it more than the way
Very
he's
clearly.
coming
Yep.
down and tearing up Charlotte. God, he
Yep.
looks so good right now.
Yeah, it's tricky because that was what Baldwin did last year in the minors too. I mean, he looked like a freaking superhero in the minor leagues, and then he got up to the bigs and he struggled, and he's doing the same thing this year. Like there is a massive talent gap between the AAA and Major League Baseball, and I don't really think people comprehend that to the full extent until you really see it with guys like this, where it's like Brooks Baldwin looks like one of the best baseball players you will ever see in AAA, and then he's been in Chicago and he's struggled, right? Like
And this will underscore it even more. Jacob Amaya is 9 of his last 18. Right? I mean, that really makes
yeah,
our point.
yeah. No,
I
you're
will,
you're
I
right.
will, I will say this though. I finally got a chance to watch him live now that he's in Charlotte, and man, that guy is slick with the glove. He really,
That's what
it's
they
a shame he's
they
not a league
say.
average hitter because wow, is he good
That's
defensively?
that's what they say. So
Yeah,
On
yeah.
terms of the pitching side, what do you think? Oh, this is a funny little interesting note with the Ian said with the skybox, the skyboxes at the rate that just kind of affects the ball in the outfield. I mean, there's been a lot of outfielders that have struggled in Chicago, so maybe it's organizational, maybe that's part of it. But pitching side of things, Jeff, anybody in Charlotte that stood out to you? It's been a pretty rough month, I would say, collectively from the Charlotte pitching staff. They have given up a lot of runs in the past month.
Yeah, we knew it was going to be bad. We've been saying it from day one. This is where we're
Yeah.
going to see the effect of all the pitching injuries and spring training, and
Yep.
sure that's the case. It was good to see Tyler Schweitzer come back.
Struggling a little. Yeah.
6 great innings. It was brutal to see how the game ended in a loss, but that's another story. And it's nice to have Peyton Pallette there. Like I said, he's one of the guys I'd like to talk to.
Agreed.
Because I haven't talked to him since Kannapolis. So
Yeah, I would have skipped Paulette straight to Chicago, to be honest, given how the bullpen's been this year and how dominant he was looking in his last 9 games in Birmingham were like no runs allowed, like 15 strikeouts. I mean, he was just dominating in Birmingham, and he gave up a run his first game in Charlotte, and then had a really good second outing. So I think give him a couple more weeks maybe. I don't think he needs to be there long.
Yeah, I'm like you. I just think on these really good these really good pitchers, go straight to Chicago. Don't bring them to Charlotte and let them get screwed up.
Especially pen guys. Like there's just not. I don't see a reason there.
No, I agree.
So we'll see, but nothing much else on the pitching side, in my opinion, in Charlotte.
No, not at all. But 2 notes about hitters. One is goodbye, Oscar Colas. Good luck with the Angels.
Yeah, where all White Sox former players go to hire it.
Oh, yeah, Jake Eaton there. I guess the last note is curious to see Coulson this week after getting hit on the kneecap. See if he even I'm going to batting practice tomorrow in part to see if he's even taking infield or taking a couple of days off.
Yeah, that's all I got in Charlotte. Heading down to Birmingham, we'll start where the comments just went. So because I wanted to hop on that as well. We'll start on the pitching side of things. Hagen Smith has been in Arizona. Carrie just said it. He's been in Arizona working on biomechanics for a little while. We've heard, generally speaking, that there's no injury there. There was MRIs done. It was clean. I don't know, Jeff. I have a bit of a hard time believing that there is not something further with Hagen Smith. I'm curious to see what it is, but it's like the command was just uncharacteristically bad. The velo was down significantly. I know someone, in that world who had some numbers from the velo. Like he was sitting like 92.5 a couple weeks ago in Birmingham, which this is a guy who sat 95, 96 throughout most of college. I'm a little worried there. I'm going to be completely honest. I think there is some things there that need to be figured out. And ultimately, like, you don't want to play the comparison game. But Jeff, like, Jack Caglianone just got promoted to the big leagues. JJ Weatherholt is dominating Double-A. Connor Griffin has a 900 OPS as a 19-year-old in Single-A. It's hard to look at the draft and not, especially this year's draft being such a crapshoot. We'll talk soon. We're going to get Pete Flaherty on here for sure. My buddy at Baseball America, to talk some draft stuff. But looking at this year's draft, it's a total mess, especially on the hitting side. So you look at last year's draft and like there's some pretty elite hitting prospects the White Sox passed on to take Hagen Smith because he was the easier to develop, more fitting into the form of the system prospect. I didn't love it when it first happened, but I quickly grew on me because I was like, okay, they can maximize this talent. I'm not saying that's not going to happen. I think it can still for sure come together, and it's really early. But I'm a little concerned. I'll be completely honest. For the first time this season, I will admit after 2 months that I'm a bit concerned about where Higgins at right now.
Yeah, the 20 walks and 25 innings. That's something's going
It's just
on
not
there.
him. It's just not him. Like that's not who he's been. That's not who he's ever been as a pitcher. So that's just it's weird to see because it's the slider is just not quite biting the way it did even in spring training and last season. Like I'm interested to see what happens, and I still have plenty of hope for Hagen Smith. He's still a clear top 100 prospect in baseball, still has a ton of talent, but like there is a slight reason to be concerned, and I'm very curious to watch when he returns to Birmingham what it's going to look like coming out of Arizona because maybe he just needed a few weeks to reset, cool the arm off, work on some mechanics. Like that could easily be the case, and if he comes back and continues to struggle, then I'm going to start to think there's even more there in terms of the health and the body, right? Because this is a guy who people thought was going to maybe be a TJ candidate at the end of college or and coming into his professional life. And like, it would really stink if he gets TJ and is out for all of this year and next year, considering it's already June at this point, when multiple guys at that draft pick potentially are, pretty elite hitting prospects right now.
Yeah, yeah. Wouldn't it be something if both Hagen Smith and Grant Taylor both ended up being bullpen pieces? How distressing would that be?
Well, you just led us into our next one. I don't get it, Jeff. I really don't get this one. I've tried to wrap my head around it. I was talking with Arm about this when we were talking about the top 100, and like his take was like, I don't know how to rank a guy in the top 100, no matter how nasty he is, if he's being penciled in as a reliever in his first professional season. Like that just isn't. I just don't get it. I said this last time we recorded, and I don't even really want to talk about it that much because I don't really think there's a need to. He pitched 2 days ago, another disgusting inning out of the bullpen. He's given up what? He's given up 2 hits, Jeff, in his 6 appearances out of the bullpen. 2 hits, 6 appearances. Yeah, 6 appearances. He's given up 2 hits, no walks. I mean, the dude is disgusting. Like he's ridiculously good. And I just don't. If it's purely for innings management and they see an issue with the arm, sure, maybe. No, not even maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not so sure moving someone to the bullpen is going to preserve their arm. I mean,
I don't think so either.
They break every year. I mean, my gosh, they're up and down 60 times.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
The last member of the pitching triumvirate down there, Noah Schultz. The good news, he's up to 56 innings, and I think his last start he
46. Yeah,
46.
I believe so. Yeah. Still very good for where he's at in the season right now. Yeah.
I think his last start he had 87 pitches. But the numbers are kind of underwhelming. I mean, almost a hit an inning and 28 walks.
Yeah, they are a bit underwhelming. The positive side of that, last 2 starts, 5 innings in each start, 1 run allowed and 0 runs allowed. So 2 starts in a row where he's looked pretty good overall. It's only 4 strikeouts in each of those outings, a couple walks, but like I do see Noah Schultz starting to come around in my opinion. Even his 2 starts before that where he did allow a lot of runs, there was his last 4 starts were 7 strikeouts, 6 strikeouts, 4 strikeouts, 4 strikeouts. That is better. It's ups and downs for Schultz. Part of me thinks they started the season a little aggressive with him. Like he came into spring training and he had that chance in big league camp to show out, and he's throwing 98 in spring training games and looking gross and already kind of ramping up in March. It might have been a little aggressive. Honestly, I think that the idea there was to get him in the most competitive situation, really see how his stuff plays at the highest level, right? Like give him that little taste. And I do like that. But I see it being a little bit concerning the way his season started, but I also feel like he's kind of figured it out a little bit since then. So I'm not too worried yet about Schultz, and I'm curious to see how the season progresses. He has taken a step back. The stuff has taken a step back, and the velo especially has taken a step back. But I still think as the season goes on, we could see Schultz really find his groove. And at the end of the day, like if he gets 100 innings under his belt, even if it's at a 3.7, 3.80 ERA, like I'm okay with that because you set him up physically to be ready to be a big league piece next year, even if it has some growing pains along the way. Like really, we've said this from the start of the season, like really this season is about getting him the innings he needs to get for him to be fully prepared to be a big league pitcher come 2026 and beyond.
Now, another big important component of this season's goals is the improvement of the changeup. So I'm curious to see what you think
Yeah.
about the changeup, how much he's throwing it, and how much has that maybe resulted in a higher number of hits and walks than we
I feel
ordinarily
like I
do.
haven't seen a ton of it. I would want Ian's opinion here if he's still in the stream here because I don't think I've seen a lot of it because I feel like even when Schultz, especially when he's getting behind and counts more, like he is very fastball slider dependent, and those are the pitches he trusts and the pitches he knows. So I feel like I see him going towards those just as much as ever. I'm hoping the changeup rate is up. I will hopefully try and get some numbers maybe for next week on the usage rate for him because I can pull some of those. But I think that I want to see more of it, but really at the end of the day, like the priority with him is the fastball and the slider, and both have been a little worse. So even though we want to see the changeup develop, I'd rather see him get those back on track before anything else, right? Like you need those to be elite for him to be who he can truly be, right?
All right. While we're in Birmingham, I've got
Yeah.
questions about two other pitchers, two less heralded but really successful pitchers right now: Shane Murphy and Jake Kalish. Are these
Yeah.
guys? What's the upside here?
I mean, Shane Murphy is just a guy that gets outs, right? Like this is what's interesting about Murphy is like he's always kind of been that guy. Like the stuff is not super exciting, honestly. It's a 4-pitch mix. He mixes and matches his stuff a lot. He throws all over the zone. Like it probably just a depth arm, but like he keeps throwing well, and he also just doesn't walk anybody. What is his like? I think he has what like 2 walks or something in the past. He has the past month. So I have his past 4 games pulled up. 1 walk and 22 strikeouts. So Murphy's a guy at .61 WHIP in that span of time in his last 4 outings. Murphy just keeps getting outs. And then Palish is an interesting one. I think is it Palish or Palish? I don't know. I'm curious if it's Palish or Palish, but I'm going to go with Palish for now. Jake Palish is a 26-year-old undrafted guy who was signed by the White Sox. I want to say he was signed in after the 2022 draft. So 3 years ago, signed by the organization and has been, throughout the org making his way up. Never really showed a lot at the lower levels, which is interesting because he was in Winston for an entire season and struggled there. Last year had a decent year in Birmingham, but then this year, it's really funny with him because he's a guy that, to me, when I watch him, he screams reliever. It's a high carry fastball from the left side, and it's a kind of sharp cuttery slider, right? That profile to me, from a left side guy, is often going to be a reliever. But you also see guys like, obviously he's not Garrett Crochet, but you see guys like Garrett Crochet who have that kind of fastball cutter slider variation, and that thrives in that starting role. Palish, what's interesting is that he looked good out of the bullpen. He didn't look bad at all. But with all these injuries, he slides into the rotation and now has made 4 starts, has gone 5+ innings in every start, has allowed 2 total runs across 4 starts with, I want to say, well, let's see, look at it, 13, 20 strikeouts in those 4 starts so far. It's gross. Like he's shoving as a starter, which is interesting because he seems like a reliever to me. And that's what's so funny about minor league baseball is it doesn't really always make sense. Like this is a guy that I look at and I watch him pitch and I'm like, oh, reliever for sure. Depth, older guy, college undrafted guy. Like he's going to be a reliever. The starting role is just working for him, and the fastball is playing up really well. This is a guy whose fastball is not hard, but it has carry. Yeah, he said he throws 90, right? Like I didn't even, he doesn't throw hard. I didn't know what the velo was, but like it doesn't really like. It doesn't look like anything crazy, but he's been effective and he's mixing and matching and he's hitting his spots. And, it's still probably as a reliever long term, but like, let him start. If he's going to keep shoving like this, let him start. And he's 26 years old. So if it means giving him a shot as a long reliever in Chicago at the end of the season, sure. Right. Like these are the guys you ride the hot hand with some of these pitchers.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. I watched him for the first time, I think last week, and point of spot on control. I mean, it was really impressive. So, yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, Ian said he hasn't started in 6 years. That's crazy. He's just shoving as a starter now. That's nuts. Yeah. So we'll see. Who you got next?
Well, I was going to ask you about just mention some of the hitters and start with Jacob Gonzalez. Seems to be having a nice run here. He had a 3 home run week ago, and overall he's up to 259 with a 323 OBP, 16 walks to 31 strikeouts. That's the numbers are starting to look decent.
Yeah, Gonzalez, again, as someone who's never quite been the biggest Gonzalez supporter, I do think he's looked a lot better of late. I mean, he maybe saw the torpedo bat thing. Like, that was cool to see from him. Yeah, like you said, the numbers in the past month, particularly 791 OPS, has looked better. The strikeout rate is down, which is a big thing for him. I think that's the type of guy who you're going to need to see a little less strikeouts from him for him to be, yeah, torpedo bat difference maker. You're going to need to see the strikeout rate continue to stay down, I think, for him. And actually, it was pretty low last year, honestly, but it's been pretty good of late. Only 31 strikeouts this season in 47 games. Showing some stuff. Showing a little more pop, right? He's had a few homers of late, and generally looks to be making a little bit of a turn around the corner for him. And then the other guy, like Ryan Galaney, Jeff. I mean. He just won't stop hitting. He won't stop hitting. And I said this on another pod that I just did with the Blackout show yesterday that I hopped on. He's, in my opinion, he's a better Tim Elko. I honestly do think that. I think that he doesn't have the raw power Tim Elko has, but he's a much more well-rounded hitter, honestly, than Elko is in many different ways. And he's still kind of that archetype of a first baseman, an older college guy, mashes at the lowest levels and makes his way up slowly or quickly, makes his way up quickly. But like, he hasn't really had those growing pains. Like last year he did a little bit in Winston, but then this year he comes out, he mashes in Winston, and he gets to Birmingham. He's still kind of mashing in a really hard league to hit it. I think that it's, and Galaney, the cool thing about Galaney, he doesn't strike out, Jeff, nearly at the rate that you expect from a power hitting first baseman, whatever, right? Like he's striking out right now. This season, he has 31 strikeouts in 50 games. That's a really low strikeout rate from a first baseman who has pop, right? Like he's not a ton, it's not Tim Elko pop, but it's a pretty solid player overall, and he keeps hitting. So I'm excited to see what Galaney looks like. I at 24 years old, like I would be perfectly open to seeing him in Charlotte this season, honestly.
Yeah, 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 and you're right. I mean, he's doing this in the Southern League. That's yeah,
Yeah, and it's just well rounded. Like I think that's the cool thing. The past month for Galaney, 8 walks, 12 strikeouts, 3 homers, a bunch of hits, 18 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. He's not a speed guy, but he'll get you a couple bags here and there. Like he's just a pretty good hitter, and I've been impressed with him. Last year and especially this season, I really think he looks the part of a guy who can at least make the big leagues. And I'm not saying he's going to be a big league piece. He's not a high end prospect. He might slip in the back of my top 30 from the system, right? But like for a 13th round pick, this is another house money type of guy per se, where if you have a 13th round pick who climbs up the system, keeps hitting at every level, and he makes the big leagues, it doesn't. I know it doesn't help people. People hate hearing this sort of because it doesn't help winning necessarily, but that's an organizational victory to have a 13th round pick who's a older college signing get to the big league level, right?
No, you're right. You're right. I like the better version of Elko. That's a pretty good description, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Another
too many other bats, I don't think, right? Nobody else bats wise has been performing all that well in Birmingham.
you got Bergola and
He's had a rough past few weeks, but still a decent, yeah.
and you know what? I actually just only because I haven't looked in a couple of weeks to see what Nishida has done for the season. Yeah,
Not much.
Well, 381 OBP.
Yeah.
And about what we'd expect.
Yeah, that's about right. I would agree. Yeah. I think we can head down to Winston then. Yeah.
So in Winston, I guess the big question is Braden Montgomery in a slump?
Sorry, Ian's right. I didn't even check this past week. I was looking at the past month. I'll own up to it. Take it away, Winston.
Braden, is he slumping? Is he just not adjusting? Is it because in part he doesn't have any protection in that lineup? What do you think's going on there?
Yeah, it's been really rough the past week or two. I got to give Ian the shout out here again because he posted a little clip of the film breakdown of Braden's swing from the left side, and I started looking at it carefully, and it does look like he's drifting a bit from his mechanics. It looks like he got a little bit into that. I think he gained a lot of exciting confidence and general just like excitement, which is great and awesome, and we love that. But then the last few weeks, it feels like he's kind of got a little bit like over eager in some of his approaches and his ways of going about things recently. the past, let's see, the past 15 days or so. This is the past 2 weeks, particularly Braden Montgomery has a
Yeah.
yeah, what is it? A 420 OPS, so 133. It's been a lot more strikeouts they've ticked up. The power hasn't quite gone. I think he's pulling out of the box a little bit. It's tough. It's tough to see him struggle the way he's been struggling because it was so fun to watch at the beginning of the season. But he really just has not been himself, and I do think he's pressing a little bit. I'm curious to see what happens. Going forward with him, he could use a little reset, maybe some Ryan Fuller time.
Oh, you think it's that's serious? All right.
Not super. I wouldn't say super serious yet. I don't want to press alarms. He's still an excellent hitter. He had a great start to the season. He tore through Kannapolis, right? Like, I'm not worried about Braden Montgomery long term, but he does look like he's a little out of his rhythm, and that he's going to need to continue to kind of figure some more things out. And that's not a bad thing. Like, that doesn't. This is his first professional season coming off a big injury. Like, we got some time. He's going to need to reset a bit from these past few weeks.
And I'll ask both you and Ian, how much, if at all, is the problem that you can pitch around him in that lineup? I mean, there's just no one else there that scares you.
That doesn't help. I think that Sam Antonacci coming back this week will be great.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a nice addition. Antonacci's just approach and at bats will definitely help Braden. I think that's a guy who in that lineup gives a big difference maker in terms of making pitchers work early in at bats. So that should help. But at the end of the day, I don't think lineup is a huge thing at that level in high A. It shouldn't be the key factor there. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, he's really struggled with the outside pitch. That's another thing Ian pointed out. And I started looking at it and I was like, the pitch, he looks like he's pulling in on the inner half stuff and kind of getting around, pulling out too soon a little bit. So that's what he's saying here. So we'll see. There's some adjustments that need to be made. The approach and the swing and some things that need to be tweaked here. But again, this is a guy who's in his first professional season. It's been 2 months. Like, I'm not worried about Braden significantly here.
Right. No one else. I don't have anybody else offensively in Winston. How about you?
No, not really. Nobody super of late. I think in the last month or so, just some, nobody's really excelled here. We've seen a little bit better of a month from Sammy Zavala, which is nice to see, a little bit of a tick up there, but generally still not great there. It's been better production, which we'll take from what he was doing, but still nothing super noteworthy in terms of the hitting there. Antonacci should be back soon, though. That's one thing to mention. I did hear he's playing in the ACL, and he should be back in Winston soon-ish.
And you're right. That's a big deal.
For sure.
On the pitching side, however, Tanner McDougal and Lucas Gordon continues to excel.
Yeah, Tanner McDougal. We've said this for a while, and we know this, but like Tanner McDougal, the stuff is there. It's all the makings of a high end pitcher. It just has not been consistent yet. The biggest thing for McDougal, in my opinion, and he's had some ups and downs, he's still given up some runs. 9 walks in his past 6 starts in the last month. That's a big step forward for McDougal. That is a big step for him. With the stuff he has, if he can continue to keep that walk rate lower, I'm pretty excited about a McDougal, despite the numbers being pedestrian this season. But, 47 and a third innings, 60 Ks, and the walk rate is coming down slowly but surely. It still was high earlier in the season, but you look at that, I just said, last 6 starts had 9 walks. So he's 11 starts into his season. So that means in his first 5 starts of the season, he had, I think, 16 walks. And then since then, he has 9 in his past 6 starts. So that's a huge difference for McDougal. If he's able to limit those walks like he didn't have a single, in his 6 starts in May, no start over 2 walks. That's a huge step forward for a guy like that. In addition to 3 of those 6 starts in May having 8 or more strikeouts. The results in terms of ERA haven't quite got there yet. He's still given up a few big hits here and there. The overall stuff for McDougal the past month has been very encouraging to me.
Yeah. No, and his last start, 7 innings, 3 hits.
He was incredible that day. Incredible this past weekend. Yeah, really sharp stuff over the weekend.
In fact, that might be the best start of any minor league pitcher.
It's up there with some of the Opper starts at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and Opper didn't go 7, so yeah.
Yeah.
And
no, I think.
Speaking of Opper, it was great to see him back. He missed 1 start for load management. I was a little nervous that 1 start's going to lead to 4, but he was back.
Yeah, one thing to mention before we move off McDougal. I'm pulling up some numbers I saw sitting 97 to 98 this past weekend, and
Yeah,
77% strike rate for him.
yeah.
Yeah,
We may be seeing it come together, right?
the
This is
slider at 88 to 89, the curveball down at 78 to 80. Velo was holding 83 pitches through 7 innings. I mean, that's the best start of his career, probably. I think it's up there with the best start of his career, and I think McDougal's a guy that he's on my top 30 now at this point, but like he could climb a little here. You got to remember, this is a 22-year-old. Like it feels like he's 26 because he's been in the organization for so long because he was an 18-year-old high school draft pick 4 years ago. He's 22 years old and he looks the stuff has been very impressive. If the command continues the direction it's been going, we could be looking at Tanner McDougal as a clear top 20 guy in the system.
Yeah, no, easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 2 wins for Carson Jacobs out of the bullpen, but been a bit of an inconsistent year for Carson. But when he's
Yeah,
on,
it's been up and down for sure.
yeah.
In the pen, Phil Fox has been good lately, which is
Yep.
nice to see.
Yeah.
That's a guy who I liked out of the draft a lot as a quick moving potential reliever. His past month, 2.25 ERA across 12 innings, only 9 hits allowed. Pretty solid for Fox. Nothing crazy, but another guy who's had a pretty good month here. Who else has been? There's not a ton of other guys. Luke Bell had a good month before he got moved up, and then there's been a handful of other solid performances. But that's all I got on the pitching side.
Yeah, same here. Same here. But speaking of pitching, let's go to Kannapolis because
Yeah.
they are, despite the losses of Nick Pinto and Mason Moore, they had some guys step in and step up. With Grant Upberger at the top of the list. Tell me about Grant. He's just been lights
Grant
out.
Umberger has been gross. Honestly, he has been really, really good. I can't say I knew much about Grant Umberger. This is a guy who was, undrafted coming out of Toledo. I think he played at 2 or maybe even 3 colleges. I want to say in his collegiate career. So he moved around. It's been pretty good, all things considered, for a guy like Umberger, who this stuff is not crazy, but it's another lefty with some interesting stuff. Everything moves a little. He works with the 2-seam. He just has been really steady, and these last few starts have been phenomenal. Like it's been more than steady; it's been excellent. I don't think this stuff is anything that stands out to me. I like the fastball characteristics, but I think in general he's more of a we'll see what happens type of guy, right? Being a 23-year-old undrafted guy, but at the same time, like the way he's throwing right now, like I'm cool seeing it in Kannapolis pretty immediately, or in Winston, pardon me. Like his age, his experience level playing college for a long time, 4 years of college, senior signing, right? Like I'm good to see. He just signed with the organization in February too, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So we will see what happens, but I think that it would be nice to see him in Winston pretty soon here.
So Kannapolis and Charlotte are both home this week, and there are a couple of guys I'm interested in talking to in batting practice. But the one game I've got circled is Thursday night when he gets the start. I really want to see him in person.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think he'd be a fun guy to check out a little bit. Let's see. He wasn't even like it's funny because you see a lot of these guys. He was in the MAC, right? So a smaller conference. He started at a bigger school. He was at Virginia Tech, mostly pitching out of the bullpen. Makes his way to Toledo, where he's able to become one of their key starters there. But 70 innings with 80 strikeouts. It's not crazy numbers, but it's just kind of really performed well that last year at Toledo. Seems like a guy who will be easy to root for, and I'm curious to see where things take him. But it's been ridiculous stuff over the past few weeks from Umberger. I mean, his last 2 starts, 13 innings, 1 run, 14 strikeouts.
Yeah. And even tougher guy to figure out is Caleb Sophie because he had 2 great starts without a strikeout.
Yeah, I can't even give you much on this one, honestly, Jeff. Another left-hander, just kind of we'll see what happens. I couldn't even tell you, honestly. He signed with the White Sox out of an independent league, I believe, a few weeks ago, and then it's been good so far.
Right. I'm looking at his last 3 starts: 4 innings, 1 hit, 4 walks, no strikeouts. 4.1 innings, 2 hits, 3 walks, no strikeouts. Then his last start: 5 innings, 6 hits, no walks, 5 strikeouts. So Actually, yeah, I think he's their Sunday starter. There's a chance I may get a chance to catch him
Yeah.
as well. Because how
I,
else you can understand it?
I'm not gonna even try to really give much input. I don't really know, but he's been great. So we'll see.
But interesting. But seriously, moving on, and with regard to the Kannapolis rotation, Brizuela, who I just thought was an org guy last year, but he's really taken it up a level and looks
Yeah.
good. It's time to get him to Winston and see what he can do. Along
Still
with
pretty sneaky young Brizuela, and he had an okay. His last start was a little more shaky, I believe. But is only 21 too. So
right. And Sinibaldi has looked good. He had a little hiccup here recently, but otherwise he's been pretty solid this year. And I think Seth Keener has looked much better since coming to Kannapolis.
yeah, what do you think of Keener so far? I mean, he's given up some significant runs, but it looks like that last start was a little bit more, a little bit better from him.
Yeah, it's hard to quantify exactly why things go
2 starts
sideways
ago was the one
for
I
him.
saw. Yeah.
It just seems like he's got that one inning that just is a
He
disaster.
he does have an inning that's rough typically. I still just like I don't know. I get keeping it going, but I kind of want to see Seth Keener let loose in a relief role. I'm not going to lie. I think that he did it in college, and I think because he was drafted so high, the White Sox are probably hesitant to do it. I sort of just want to see him let that slider loose in a 1 or 2 inning relief role and just see what happens. Just because I do think you could move him a lot quicker. That blow up inning that he typically does have that blow up inning, and you can kind of mitigate that in a relief role if you go for 1 or 2 innings. And that blow up inning will happen in that 1 or 2 innings sometimes, but more times than not, hypothetically, it won't if you're going out of the bullpen, right? So I kind of am ready. I think maybe you give it another month or two, but I think by the end of the season or by the second half of the season, you consider him in a relief role, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think that's probably where we should go and where it probably is
Yeah.
headed.
Jack Young, another guy to mention out of that bullpen. Speaking of bullpen guys,
Yeah.
Jack Young has had a really good season under the radar. This is a guy that I didn't know a ton about compared to most of the draft guys, but is a college reliever. They knew he was drafted as a reliever, right? Like you kind of knew he was going to be a reliever. 0.83 ERA, Jeff, has given up 1 earned run in 24 innings this season. 25 strikeouts. He does have a bit of a walks problem, 15 walks in those 24 innings, but only 11 hits allowed across 24 innings. Jack Young has been great in that bullpen, and 23 years old, being drafted last year, like another guy. I'm like, I know you can't move everybody, but like Winston, like 1 run allowed, Jeff. Even with the walk problem, like if you're walking that many guys and still have allowed 1 earned run, it probably means when you're not walking guys, you've been pretty dang good.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we see it all the time. We see these experienced college arms, these 22, 23-year-old guys. They come to Kannapolis, they dominate. We got to get them to Winston as soon as possible so we can really see, so they can really be challenged more.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think that's the same thing. What about the hitting side in Canny? I
Well,
mean, I know who I want to talk about, but
well, who's that?
I mean, top of the list. Take a guess. So like I mentioned, the Just Baseball Top 100. The Top
Caleb
100 comes
Robinson.
out this week for JB. This updated Top 100 that Arm's been working on. I've been talking through a million of these rankings with him all week. I'm excited that I get to kind of help him out with that more as time goes on here, which is really cool. Caleb Bottomer is not only a top 100 prospect, Jeff. He's not in the 90s and he's not in the 80s. I'll say that.
Oh,
Caleb Bottomer is one of the better teenage hitters in minor league baseball right now. Like he's not a top 10, top 20 prospect, right? But like this is a very, very clear top 100 level talent, in my opinion, that the White Sox drafted in the second round. And he's exceeded all expectations for a 19-year-old going straight to Kannapolis so far this season.
No, I agree. I mean, he has been so steady and so consistent and looked so comfortable from day one. He's squaring up the ball. He looks great defensively. Yeah, I don't think that's overhyping it. I mean, he has earned a top 100 designation.
Yeah, I mean, it has been really, really impressive, all things considered. I think that he's just, it's you don't want to push it, you don't want to rush it, but like he's done everything that you could imagine in Kannapolis. The speed is more than I expected from him. He's stealing bags. He looks like he's showing range at shortstop. He looks good at third when he's been playing there too. So you've already got that layer of versatility with him where if he does fill out to the point where he can't quite handle shortstop, then great. Like, he's a really good player and he's walking a lot. The approach is really patient. He's able to take his pitches when he needs to. Yeah, he's going to strike out a little, but like for his age, he's not striking out that much, honestly. I think he's going to be a force. I think there's a chance he gets to Winston this year. So I'm going to ask in the chat, like it's you don't want to rush it. And I don't think you need to put him there anytime soon. It's been 2 months. Let's let him get through a full half of the season and then some, and then we'll see. Would I be down to see a month in Winston at the end of the season if it keeps up? Even at 19 years old, like I'm kind of open to it, Jeff, the way he's been hitting.
Well, it's crazy. When we probably have this discussion every 3 weeks about
Right.
age versus how much a player is being challenged.
Right.
If the next month is like the last month, then at some point you've got to start seriously considering sending him to Winston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to look into it. I think that it's definitely. I mean, he's a stud. Somebody Kerry mentioned as well that Javier Mogollon is back. Great to have Javier Mogollon back. He's just a fun player to watch. Like every time I get to watch at bats of his, like I just enjoy checking out his at bats, even if I'm not watching it live. Like I just like looking at the clips that the post that are just like, oh, Mogollon, did this or that or whatever. Like 30 games from Mogollon, getting on base at a 438 clip. 12 stolen bags, a number of what is that? 16 extra base hits in 30 games for a guy that's 5'6", maybe. Like he's just a fun player. I'm really happy he's back in the lineup and he made an impact already. What is it? I think 3 hits in his first 3 games back, I want to say. So Mogollon, good to see him back for sure. Welcome to Ditch and hit a nuke yesterday. So glad to have him back in the lineup in Candy. And I think we'll get hopefully a good stretch from him here.
Yeah, and the plate approach has been a lot better than we feared. Again, it's low A, but it's still very encouraging. The strikeout rate is manageable, and the power is off the charts.
Completely.
Another guy who's started to heat up after taking a couple of weeks to get settled in is Abraham Nunez. He's swinging much better.
Yeah. I don't know a ton on Nunez. I mean, he had some good numbers last year, and he looked intriguing. But ultimately, I got to see significantly more from him. I think it's been better, but it still hasn't been great from Nunez. But 19 years old, a guy that was one of the younger guys coming out of that crop of the ACL guys who had a pretty good season last year. So we'll see what happens with Nunez, but worth keeping an eye on for sure. And then Ronnie Hernandez, Jeff. I don't know if you've checked in with him. Last 2 weeks, particularly the past 2 weeks for Ronnie, 314. 455, 457, so a 912 OPS in the past 2 weeks for Roney, 9 walks and only 5 strikeouts in those 11 games. This is a guy who's walked in the past and we've seen it, but like good to see him getting back into a groove here and looks like he's really finding his rhythm here, which is nice to see.
I've always enjoyed watching him hit. He's just a really polished hitter. They're always competitive at bats. He's just one of those guys that at crucial points in the ball game, I feel like he's going to get his bat on the ball.
And should have mentioned this earlier, but Calvin Harris going to Birmingham opens up those at bats for Roney, and now I think he's already finding his groove a little bit. I think him kind of settling in gives it more of a comfortable position where he gets to kind of move up, and then Roney gets to really take that role and run with it now that he's kind of in a hot streak already right now, which is great.
Yeah, I hope Cal can hit in Birmingham. He was a man among boys in Kannapolis.
And as he should be probably, right? Like a college guy, a high-end college guy from 2 years ago, where like you hope he would dominate, right? So like we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, somebody, Uncle Ted throwing some shade on Bonham. Come on.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about any strikeout rate for a guy that's doing what he's doing so far in his first professional season personally, but that's just me. Somebody just asked about Alejandro Cruz. Definitely, I have no access to Dominican to DSL footage, but he is playing in the DSL. He played in their first game, what it was a couple of days ago when they started playing. So Alejandro Cruz, top international signing for those who don't know from last year's class. Definitely excited if when the time comes to get some potential info on him and some numbers from what he does in the Dominican League after a couple of weeks, hopefully, because that's a guy who we will definitely be keeping an eye on come next year when he makes his way stateside, hopefully.
Yep. And I recall, Ian can tell us a little bit more about this. I kind of recall James recently saying that he was pulling together some information on the current DSL team.
Nice. Yeah, I think James did put something out actually. So if I remember right. So yeah, that's exciting. Jeff, you got any last thoughts, ideas? This is yes, Jack Caglianone has had a very good first professional season. I would agree. Uh, anything else you got on your mind, Jeff? Any thoughts you got rolling here?
Unrelated to White Sox baseball, I was talking to a Royal scout in the press box last week, and he said, I know there's pressure on the Royals to bring Caglione up, but he said, I really wish they wouldn't do it. I wish they wouldn't rush him, but I guess we see who won that argument.
I mean, he was absolutely destroyed.
Right. And you know what?
One more thing.
I can't complain. I've got him on my fantasy team.
There you go. He'll be up for you. That'll be helpful. One more guy I want to mention, actually, because we were getting down to some of the lower levels. At the complex league, Steven Flores is one guy that I kind of pegged a little bit as a I pointed him out as a guy to keep a little bit of an eye on last year. The numbers were pretty impressive in the complex and has had a pretty good start to the season. I've seen some positive things. I just saw a video from a guy who I keep up with who does some ACL stuff, and it looks like he looks like he's off to a good start in the ACL. And another guy who is more of a offensive first profile. I think he is technically a catcher, but I don't think he's catching a ton. I think he's probably more of a first base profile from Steven Flores, but a guy that's worth keeping an eye and an ear out for in the ACL right now. Sorry, Ian. Yes, you're right. I misspoke there.
And I understand, speaking of out in Arizona, that Matthias Lacombe is throwing the ball well.
Yeah, that's one worth mentioning for sure. I got some fun data on Matthias, and his stuff looks really good. The fastball sweeper combo for him, the numbers metrically are really strong. Again, I don't have a ton of video there. I don't have, I don't think we have tons of access to the complex league, but like the numbers are really good. Strikeout numbers have been strong for him so far. I've learned not to put too much stock in ERA and runs allowed and stuff like that in Arizona. We look at Christian Opper last year, like that's another perfect example. Like I'm not worried about the numbers. I think at that level, like you want to see the stuff, and it looks like Matthias has some really intriguing stuff and has been showing it this season. So I think that's a guy who I would like to see in Kannapolis pretty soon, depending on where he's at with his development. I know they obviously have a plan for him, I assume, given that he didn't throw a ton last year. But I think, he's up to 15 innings right now in Arizona. He hasn't thrown in a little while. So hoping, he threw this week actually again. So hoping that he is, he's made 5 starts there. So I think I'm cool with seeing him pretty soon in Kannapolis.
Yeah, absolutely. Bring him and a couple of guys to Kannapolis and send some of the pitchers that we were talking about earlier to Winston. Let's keep
I'm with you. I think Lacombe could slide right into that rotation, honestly, in Kannapolis.
Yeah.
Well,
all right. Elijah, it is great to have you back. We covered a lot of ground tonight, and I appreciate all the insight.
We got a lot of good stuff coming up, so make sure you're following at AAA Jeff on X, at Elijah EV8 is myself on X, at FutureSox. We will have a draft preview coming soon. Definitely going to get Pete Flaherty back on like we had last year, which was awesome. He does a great job breaking down draft prospects. That will be fun. Hopefully, we'll get a top 100. Like I mentioned, the Just Baseball top 100 that I've been kind of helping get tied up is going to be coming out this week. So we're gonna hop on with that, talk about that probably next week a little bit. Hopefully, maybe either get Arm or Jack on here at some point too, which would be awesome. But yeah, I mean that's going to be exciting because the top 100 is my favorite thing ever. Is when top 100 updates come out. I just love watching everything about it. So it's going to be exciting to check out. And I think that there's some fun stuff going on in the White Sox world. So we'll be back next week. And we appreciate everyone tuning in today.
All right, appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff. Have a good one.